The country star recently released his new album. For recreational use only, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a nice day before we begin the video. Please subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Blake Shelton fell back in love with music, all thanks to Post Malone. Blake Shelton is back with his first new album in nearly 4 years. For recreational use only, the country star joins Tom Power to talk about retiring from the hit TV show The Voice after 23 seasons, feeling burned out, and being unsure about whether he would ever release a new record. Plus, Shelton shares how an unexpected collaboration with Post Malone helped him fall back in love with music. For over a decade, Blake Shelton was the beating heart of The Voice. His drawl, wit, and down-home authenticity turned a televised singing competition into something more, a family affair. But after his departure from the show, many fans wondered if the legendary country star was also stepping away from music altogether. Burnout had crept in, the industry had changed, and Blake was quietly retreating into a slower-paced life filled with family, farming, and fried catfish in Oklahoma. And yet, in a plot twist that not even the Voice producers could have orchestrated, it wasn't country royalty or a Nashville revival that reignited his passion. It was Post Malone. Yes, that Post Malone, the face-tatted, genre-defying artist known for breaking rules and bending expectations. The unlikely pairing took fans by surprise and created a ripple that would ultimately lead to a creative rebirth for Shelton himself. What started as a chance encounter evolved into one of the most unexpected musical friendships in recent memory, one that reminded Blake what he loved about music in the first place. And it all began in the most Blake Shelton way possible, over beer and guitars, drifting from the spotlight. By the time Blake Shelton wrapped his final season on The Voice, he was drained. Behind the scenes, the Oklahoma native had confessed to friends that the music industry no longer felt like home. What once thrilled him, writing lyrics, walking onto stages, discovering raw voices, now felt like a grind. In an interview shortly after his departure, Blake said, "You can't keep doing something just because people expect it. I needed to figure out who I was when I wasn't being Coach Blake, and I wasn't sure I liked what I found." He retreated to his ranch in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, focusing on his marriage to Gwen Stefani, spending time with her 3 sons, and rediscovering what peace felt like without production schedules and media obligations. But while his heart found rest, his musical spark dimmed. Guitar strings stayed, song lyrics went unwritten. Even his once eager trips to Nashville became rare. "I didn't know if I'd make another album," Blake admitted in a candid podcast appearance. "Not because I didn't want to sing, I just didn't feel like I had anything left to say." Enter Post Malone. The universe, however, had other plans. In early 2024, Gwen Stefani performed at a private industry charity event in Los Angeles. Among the headliners was none other than Post Malone, known for effortlessly jumping between hip-hop, pop, rock, and, more recently, country. Blake, tagging along to support his wife, had no intention of networking. He wasn't even supposed to perform. But backstage, something changed. Post Malone, beer in hand, spotted Blake leaning against a wall and walked over like they'd known each other for years. "Dude, you're the reason I picked up a damn acoustic guitar when I was a kid," Post said, according to multiple sources. "I used to watch you on CMT, man. You're a legend." Blake laughed, half disbelieving it. Post's admiration was genuine, and before long, the two were trading jokes and music stories like old friends. Then came the kicker. The Post asked, "Why aren't you making music anymore?" Blake didn't answer right away, but the Post kept pressing. "You still got it," he said. "The world needs your voice. Hell, I need your voice. You taught me about heart. Let's jam sometime." A jam session becomes a revelation. Weeks later, the casual idea became reality. In Gwen's home studio, Blake and Post Malone sat down with 2 acoustic guitars and a few cans of beer between them. No producers, no cameras. Just two artists with vastly different backgrounds finding common ground in music. What began as casual strumming turned into something magical. They played old country ballads. Then Post introduced Blake to some unreleased material with a haunting, Nashville-inspired tone. Blake was floored. The song wasn't pop. It wasn't hip-hop. It was honest. I sat there thinking, this kid gets it. Blake later shared. I could feel the sincerity in his lyrics. He wasn't playing a role. He wasn't trying to be country. He was country in his bones, and that shook me. Post encouraged Blake to pick up the pen again. He challenged him to. I realized I hadn't written a song for myself in years, Blake said. I was writing for labels, for formats, for expectations. But the Post reminded me why I'd ever started singing about heartbreak and tractors in the first place. A secret recording session. Over the next several months, Blake and Post Malone began collaborating in secret. The sessions took place in both LA and Nashville, blending their influences and instincts in a way neither expected. Post brought lo-fi beats, vintage amps, and experimental mix. Blake brought stories, ones he'd been holding back for years. Together, they built something special, an EP of songs rooted in country but laced with modern grit. One track in particular, tentatively titled Back Where I Belong, was born from a late-night conversation between the two about fame, burnout, and rediscovery. Lyrics reportedly include, I walked away from stages bright, thought I'd fade into the dark slash. But some kid with face tattoos lit a fire in my heart. Blake laughed when he sang the line, but he also choked up. The song was real, raw, and he hadn't felt that kind of catharsis in years. Returning to The Voice, sort of news of Blake and Post's secret sessions began to leak in early 2025, sending both fandoms into overdrive. But it wasn't until The Voice invited both artists for a one-night-only performance that the public got a glimpse of what was brewing. The moment was electric. Post took the stage first, guitars slung across his body. After a few solo bars, a second mic appeared, along with that unmistakable deep Oklahoma twang. The crowd erupted as Blake Shelton walked on stage in his signature denim and boots, looking relaxed but energized. They performed a brand new duet, Rust in the Rain, a soulful, genre-blending anthem that brought the house down. And just like that, Blake Shelton was back, not as a coach, not as a reality TV star, but as a musician reborn. I haven't felt this alive in a long time, he said, wiping a tear as the crowd gave them a standing ovation. Thank you for reminding me what music can be. A new era for Blake Shelton. In the weeks that followed, Blake announced a return to music, not just with new material, but a new mindset. No more chasing trends or fitting into narrow expectations. His next album, co-produced by Post Malone, would be called Wild Roots, and it would feature both traditional country and boundary-pushing collaborations. I'm not trying to be anyone but me, Blake told Rolling Stone. But now, I see that me is still evolving, and that's okay. The album is set to feature artists from across genres, including a heartfelt duet with Gwen, a soulful ballad with Chris Stapleton, and a surprise track with Post Malone that fans already claim might change country music forever. Post Malone reflects on the friendship. As for Post, he says working with Blake changed him just as much. Blake taught me about simplicity, Post shared in an interview, about how music doesn't have to be perfect or polished. It just has to be true. And man, that truth hit me harder than anything. Their friendship has continued to grow beyond the studio. They've gone fishing in Oklahoma, shared Thanksgiving with Gwen and the kids, even discussed the idea of a mini tour, a blues and boots tour, as Post jokingly calls it. We're just two weirdos who love music, Blake said with a grin. And that's all you really need. The Voice star Blake Shelton surprises fans with new album. For recreational use only, Blake Shelton may have stepped away from The Voice, but the country legend is proving he's far from stepping away from music. In a move that has both longtime fans and curious new listeners buzzing, Shelton has just dropped his brand new album, For recreational use only, a collection that captures everything he's known for, and a few things no one saw coming. After a brief hiatus and months of teasing through cryptic Instagram posts and guitar-filled lake house clips, the Oklahoma-born crooner is back in full swing. But this time, he's not chasing chart toppers or platinum plaques. This record, as the title cheekily suggests, is about something else entirely: joy. A return to what matters. For years, Blake Shelton was the dependable country coach on NBC's The Voice, mentoring new talent while juggling a music career, a high-profile marriage to Gwen Stefani, and a larger-than-life persona. But after 23 seasons, Shelton decided to leave the show in 2023, citing his need for simplicity and more time at home. What fans didn't expect was that he would take that time and pour it into one of the most creatively fulfilling projects of his career. For recreational use only isn't just a title, it's a mission statement. Shelton isn't trying to outdo his past or reinvent the wheel. Instead, he's inviting listeners to roll down the windows, crack open a cold one, and spend 45 minutes just having fun. I didn't want to make an album that felt like work.